Ryan, you're our Oxford. No, you're our Baton Rouge correspondent. Tell us what you think about the big hire.
It's a home run. I mean, it's who they wanted, and I think the good part of it. I mean, look, it's dripping with nastiness of what this industry is in college football. So I wouldn't defend any of that stuff. I think LSU loved messing with Ole Miss as a longtime division rival and taking their coach before the playoff, which feels gross, but they want to get their guy. And I don't blame Ole Miss for being like, we don't want you here if you don't want to be here, poaching our staff and telling guys to enter the transfer portal and follow you to Baton Rouge. So, I kind of understand all the motivation behind it, but the most important thing is that when this job was available and Lane was at Ole Miss, and Ole Miss fans aren't going to love hearing this, but I was told at the time like Lane wanted the job then. He wanted the job that badly, like was ready to
Yeah.
bail on Ole Miss years ago, which tells you how much Lane understands how great this opportunity is. I do think it is. Maybe it's not Ohio State or Alabama, certainly not historically, but one of the biggest things is they don't have another school like an Auburn. They don't have another school, maybe not Georgia Tech so much with Georgia, but the Florida schools are all competing over the in-state guys. And Saban's first thing when he was in Baton Rouge was like, look, we got to put a fence up around this state. If we keep all the great high school players from Louisiana, we don't even have to go anywhere else. So that's why it's such a incredible job if you do it right. And my feeling is Lane appreciates and understands that far better than Brian Kelly does.
Yeah, it's got to be better than Brian Kelly. Brian Kelly's the kind of guy, and I don't know what you can or can't say, Ryan, but after he's fired, like people come out of the woodwork to tell terrible stories about the things that happened. Like you don't want to be that guy.
Yeah. No, look, I thought it was the right high. I mean, it's rough when nobody. I think the nicest thing, right, right.
Go ahead.
It's kind of like when a quarterback is gone from an NFL locker room, and you're like, nobody is going to say that this guy was
not a
misunderstood.
post.
Even if it's wrong, there's not one guy that's like got along with him and was his roommate on the road. That's like, he's sort of misunderstood.
Nope.
I think the nicest thing anybody said about BK on the way out was like, one-on-one, he was okay. It was like one sentence I read from like one source that was
He
like,
was
one-on-one,
okay.
he was okay. I mean, maybe I'll be the guy. He and I always got along. Not that we had some intense relationship, but I think because he was the Massachusetts thing, and he came to ESPN when he was with Cincinnati, and I saw him a couple times with Notre Dame, probably.
Yeah.
So he was him being nice to me doesn't exactly mean anything for recruiting at LSU. And whenever you're thinking of these top programs and these fan bases that are like, who are we getting? Who are we getting? I mean, even A&M was probably a little disappointed that it was Mike Elko, and Elko's been an absolute stud, and they couldn't be happier with him. But wherever you are with these premier programs, there's generally this kind of letdown, like this is the best that we could do. So if you think of it that way, it makes all the sense in the world that he's there. The contract is wild, though. I can't believe he gets a bonus up to maybe $1 million, depending on what Ole Miss does when he's not even going to be there.
Dude,
I'm fascinated with the Jimmy Sexton part of this. Go ahead.
I want Stoops' buyout I heard about yesterday up at Kentucky, dude. Was that real or a typo? $37 million to be paid out over the next 6 months. Like you're gonna make
60 days.
60 days.
Like 60 days.
I don't care if it's 6 years. I'll take it, dude. That's if Ryan Russillo was coaching college football and there's an opening this year that you see and you could coach in one place that people don't think enough of, where would you coach?
Wow.
The curveball on live TV. This is fucking Crossfire.
Well, look,
right?
I would
some softball show.
Oh, I know. I don't even know it. I don't have this in my notes. People hate the notes. Well, I mean, you frame that question in a way where it's like you can't just say LSU. Okay, so that's fine.
It's got to be a sleeping giant.
Well, then it's Virginia Tech. Sorry.
Fuck you. Yeah, well, you know what?
Come on.
You know what?
Right.
You know what?
It's true.
Maybe they like the interim guy at Penn State, and maybe he stays and keeps a bunch of guys there. Counterpoint James Franklin.
Penn State's above the level that you were talking about here. I didn't feel like Penn State was eligible as an answer.
Okay, last question. No, what I'm saying is it might
No, that's
draw
all right.
more
I got
guys
10
to
minutes.
stay at Penn State if they keep a guy in house. You might keep some of the guys. They don't transfer down to Virginia Tech. You might not get the start you want down there. And James Franklin, great recruiter, but is that the name of the game anymore, Ryan?
Most coaches that I've talked to are like, I'd rather be a great recruiter than a great X and O guy. And
Interesting.
I think there's a lot of guys like that
Yeah.
because that's really what it is. You know, it's some of these debates about talent and where it's all going and all the IL stuff. And I'm not sure if I feel like I'm on an island sometimes with this stuff because it's like, yeah, there's so much parity now. It's like,
Right.
or we have a 12 team playoff instead of a 14 playoff,
Right.
or Ohio State, like, oh yeah, we had so much parity. Michigan and Ohio State national championships, like, so
Yeah.
maybe Indiana changes all that because they're
Dude,
certainly good enough for all this. But
Sig's a
go
beast,
ahead.
bro. Sig's a beast. And these guys,
Couldn't stand him last year.
you said
Couldn't
what?
stand
You
him
couldn't
last
stand
year.
him?
Couldn't
Yeah.
stand him this summer. Yeah,
Right.
because I mean, he just talked so much shit, and it was like, hey, look what we did to Coastal Carolina, and you're like, dude, what are you talking about? And then they get stomped by any of the good teams they played last year. All the credit in the world to what that guy's done this year, because last year I used to feel justified in giving him a hard time, and now I do not want to give him a hard time because that team's awesome, and he's done it in a place that it doesn't happen.
Nolan, by the way, here went to
Yeah.
Austin to see the game.
Yeah, I
this
actually
weekend.
if I may, I have a question for Ryan.
Yeah, ask him the question.
Don't mind my Longhorns hat, Ryan, but I'm curious if you feel the Longhorns deserve a spot in the 12-team playoff following the big win over A&M.
No, probably not. Just because it's not just the Florida loss, even though I'm probably more like, hey, I don't think Florida, like on the right Saturday, I don't think they're an easy out. I mean, their running back, Jaden, is the second best running back in college football behind Jeremiah Love at Notre Dame. I mean, he's an absolute beast. He lit up Florida State. And I think Lagway's crazy talented, although he's, obviously up and down throughout the season. But it wasn't just that. Like there's other games there with Texas. It's like, what is going on with you guys? Like, what's wrong? So the top 10 wins, the three top 10 wins, it's tough to stack that up against everybody else. I don't like I call them kind of like record whores, where you're like, well, this team is 8-2, and this team is 7-3. Well, the 8-2 team has to be better than the 7-3 team. I mean, just last week, the committee had Michigan ranked ahead of Texas because of the extra loss. You're like, in what world would you have watched these teams play out over the course of the season? Because you could see that Underwood game coming from a mile away. They're just sort of a limited
Mm-hmm.
team with a freshman quarterback, and you're just like, so you just went. Sometimes this stuff feels like standings. So even though I'm not necessarily married to that kind of stuff, it's a really crowded field, and everybody basically won the last couple of weeks except for A&M losing at Texas. So, if BYU had an extra loss, right, they're completely out of it. If Miami had lost to Pitt, if Notre Dame had stumbled somewhere else, if Bama loses at Auburn, which is in play in the Iron Bowl, like if some of these teams had the extra loss, the same way those SEC teams last year lost all, was Ole Miss, South Carolina, and Bama all losing that last weekend, then it's like, hey, guess what? I didn't love Indiana being in with that awful resume, but all these teams kind of lost at the end. So if more teams lost, I'd be fine with it. But every year, it's not like I saw somebody comparing this year's Miami to last year's Oklahoma, and you're just like, what are you doing? Like 2025 is the only way. Like these is the pool. This is the pool of teams that we have to compare each other to. And unfortunately for Texas, despite a really great high end resume and not being rewarded for playing at Ohio State week one, because they'd probably be in the playoff if they played a
Right.
nobody like
Mm-hmm.
some of these other schools do. It's just a really crowded field of teams that they're going up against, even a Vandy who they have the head to head against.